Good morning. Today is December 10th, 2022. My name is Barbara With, and you are here with me and the party, a delightful group of souls who are working in afterlife for world peace, headed up by our beloved Albert Einstein. We're also going to be talking with the psychic sorority. And before we go into this session, I kind of want to apologize just a little bit. Last week, we did a session on justice. And in the course of the conversation with the girls, some trauma stuff came up. And we all kind of decided not to publish the conversation publicly just because I think the channel on justice is still very, very powerful. But so if you hear us in these conversations referring back to that, that's what we're talking about. And without really having to know the details, you can know that it was this resurgence of trauma type of energy, which so many people experience themselves. So, but in this session, we look back on 30 years of working together with the angels and the party and how blessed we all are. So let's go talk to the sorority and welcome to the party. And Debbie, didn't you have you shared with us in writing about the conflict that I originally brought because you and I were talking about it, and you had kind of a revolution to that, didn't you?
I did. I had a big revolution, and I'm just becoming more aware of how I'm being fair with other people, and also in the context of what you guys shared, that it was so valuable to me because I too have to have boundaries. I've been, mispleaser forever, and so if somebody would cross the boundary, I wouldn't do anything, for the most part. But now I'm like, okay, I'm feeling stronger because of you guys sharing your stories, by the way. So, but I just and that's part of being fair is to me is to have those boundaries. That's showing myself fairness, being fair to me. And so I just saw that all just blend in beautifully, and I was able to use everything you guys shared, and then for me to revolve it and to see ultimately that it's my ego. Barbara and I were having this conversation, and Einstein many times has said it often gets to that nitty gritty when we revolve at that and get to the very core. It's usually the conflict is between our intellect and our intuition, and my intellect needs to be fair to my intuition and hear it out and do its bidding, instead of wanting to take control. And so that's was another reminder for me to do that. And so I'm sure I'll get a lot more reminders as we go along, until I die, but that's okay. I get better and better.
Till you die. Didn't you get some money though?
Oh yeah, see, and that was those people, they were on my list, that they were not being fair to me. She was not, and I wasn't being fair to her. I wasn't understanding that she's probably busy. Maybe she's sick. Maybe, she just has a lot of work. And so I was really belligerent and not as compassionate as I could have been. But when I went through this work without her, dealing with her specifically, but I was dealing with this issue and revolving it and doing the work within me and the change within me, all of a sudden, here I get this check that I have been waiting months and months for. That was part of that issue of them not being fair to me. So right away I saw it reflected back from my world. So it works. This works when we do the work.
I listened to an interview with David Icke and Brian Rose quite newly, and the last thing he said, and that made a big impression for me, is that you do the thing that's good for yourself and good for the whole without thinking of the consequences. And even if you die, then it's the consequence. And if they want to kill you, then they kill you, but you speak your truth anyway, if it's for the good of the whole. And that was so impressing for me. So in that way, maybe it's easier to speak our truth when we don't think about the consequences, how uncomfortable we would feel, because that's again about our egos and our mindset. We would feel uncomfortable, we would feel like this or that or whatever. And if we don't think about ourselves and look about it from in a way that makes a positive way for all women, for all people, yeah, put something good out there, then it's not so hard for us to speak our truth, I think. And it's not hurting so much either, maybe.
Yeah.
Very good point. And I loved that interview. Oh man, I got so much from that interview.
Anything else? Anybody want to add anything else before we go into a channel?
It's so wonderful to see you. That's just what I want to add. I am so happy to be able to make it in spite of the operations waiting for me. So I'm so happy.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you too after the, our conversation last week and your birthday.
I survived.
Survived. Yes, of course. And
Oh.
thrive, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do it. Let's begin together. Really breathing deeply. And as you breathe in all the way down to your solar plexus, down into your womb. And as you exhale, let go of lifetimes of imprisonment, lifetimes of suffering, lifetimes of fighting for justice, lifetimes where you've also been the criminals. Because we will command that only the most divine light shine down upon us at this time, and that the greatest good be present here. We are so happy to be here, and we cannot tell you how incredibly fascinating this entire experiment is for us. To be able to be a part of these conversations is so wonderful and rare and unique. There are a lot of channels in the world. There's a lot of people with portals within their energy field. And these people who have this ability to speak to those who have passed on in afterlife is much more widespread than you would think. But everyone doesn't give us the kind of articulation that we have worked towards achieving all those years ago, all those many, many years ago, almost 30 years now, when we started speaking in a group. It was very rudimental for us. It took us a long time to conjugate verbs and string sentences together. Today, however, We have grown this association. We have expanded this circle. We are overwhelmed sometimes with what has been accomplished, both in the lens, all of your lenses on the physical world, and here in afterlife. And we can't tell you because you're not here yet. But when you get here, you'll know what we mean when we say that you are so much closer to unification than your human minds will let you know. We would like to address those people, both men and women, who have heard the sound of our voices, been drawn to the messages as they vibrate from within. All of those people have been seeded with compassion, the sound of our voice resonating with the party and the mission and the angels and the humans, all of you humans working with us all through these years. This is enormous. This is an enormous effort that has taken place here. And we want you to know that. And when we started a year ago by speaking through more than just Barbara, speaking through Lily and speaking through Tamra, speaking through Teresa, speaking through Jojo and Heike, and at that time, Robin too, and coming in with Debbie, Joanne, and now Lynn, we're speaking through you. Now that you've opened yourself up to this party, you've granted us access to your everyday life. We're sort of like the good surveillance team that surveils your devices and instills compassion and instills inspiration and inspires self-love and downloads information that you want. And the reason why this can happen is not because we're doing it. It's because your spiritual self, your non-physical self, is in charge of your physical self. You are the one in charge of your physical self. When you want to download, when your non-physical self that's in the circle in afterlife, that has a much bigger vision than your physical ego self, wants information, it can download that information from spirit, from the non-physical world without your physical mind even knowing. And what helps you download all the good stuff, all the compassion, all the greatest good is when you nurture this self-loving relationship to yourself. And we want to tell you what the simple idea of self-love can be. It can be deciding that you're going to bear the deep emotional pain of something rather than turning to someone else and lashing out at them and inflicting that pain on them because you're in discomfort. That act where, for example, Heike, you went to your retired workmate who had just embarrassed you, and instead of coming at them as if you're going to punish them for creating an emotion inside you, which we all know is not true anyway, but that act solidifies your self-love with yourself in a way that unifies one more bit of who you are. And this is for everyone when you get into whatever conflict and where you have those deep emotions that you're willing to feel, but you're choosing not to act them out. This is so huge. We know it just, some days it just seems like everyday things that you struggle with, and why are you still struggling with these things? But in this whole birthing of this new humanity and this whole evolution of consciousness, these tiny little baby steps are where all the action is, frankly. That's what we feel. So when your non-physical part of you needs something downloaded, to help your human mind, and you've been loving yourself and you've been loving other people, you have a much easier time accessing and channeling all of that information at your fingertips, whatever you want to call it, Akashic records or the master libraries or all that is the great Gestalt. It's all there and you're all tapped into it. So we're not taking over your body and taking control of it when we say we work with you. We're working through your spirit, who has asked to be here and invited us to be here. We think the courage that you have accumulated together of trusting each other to have the kind of conversations that you have is a shining example that the world really needs to see. More than that, though, it's a platform for you to practice having great boundaries amongst yourselves. Look how you have. Look at the conversations you've had together. Look at the triggers, large and small, that have come and gone. No one's ever chosen to use the emotion to act out on someone else in that way, which is just for the good of the few, mostly an ego, at the expense of the many, all of your parts and the parts of whoever you're dumping on. What doesn't seem fair sometimes is when someone dumps on you, someone says something, does something that triggers a shame or a depth or an embarrassment or something uncomfortable, you go directly into self-love. You go into the best boundary that's held up by compassion that you can find. And this platform of developing this group is where you can work that out. And look at, everyone has very good boundaries here. It doesn't mean it's an automatic translation that you're going to have great boundaries with everyone, but you are reminded over and over that it is the I am of who you are that determines everything, not what somebody does to you, not what somebody says to you, not the circumstances around the world, but who you are and what you decide to do and what you choose to do. And the highest elevation that you can get to is choosing to love self and commit to the good of the whole. There is no higher elevation in life and death and life. When we started this communication a year ago, we said in the very beginning that we do this to help you get strong. Yes, other people get strong too by watching, but we wanted you to take this good year to demonstrate what it really is, not just an idea on the paper. Well, we'll meet every Saturday morning and we'll channel and we'll talk about all kinds of different things that are pertinent and important while we're providing tools to other people to learn how to birth a new humanity, how to participate in their own evolution and therefore the evolution of the world. There's your target market. Those are the people who we want to be drawn to you, and they will be. But you don't have to change who you are in order to attract other people. That isn't how we see it. We see the authenticity. It's either taken or it's left. And if it's left, that's just fine too. We're not here to try to convince someone that they need to take control of their life. We're here to show those who already know that they want to, how to. And that's a big difference. You have a whole different set of skills that you do when you're trying to help someone see that they even have to care about their life and participate in their life in that way. And there are different levels of work with that, but that's not our work. There's other groups and other situations that can provide that. So for this past year, we have given Barbara the opportunity to see what that workload of channeling is. And while she is right now the one who does the workload, it's going to begin to be articulated into such a way that it can move forward with bringing on support and support systems. And we want all of you to feel free to be not overcommitted and not undercommitted, but everybody picks their own path here, participation. That is your boundary setting. So if you were someone who couldn't make every single Saturday, but were hurting yourself or costing yourself money to do it, then you set that boundary that you can't make every single Saturday, or whatever those boundaries are. Because when the platform is in place and the structures are in place, it's our vision, and yours as well, that this becomes a family is really what it is. You can call them folks, but this is the family of human beings who are learning that that you're all the very same. You have different movies playing in your little one-person movie theater, but at your root, you all operate in the very same way, just like all of your hearts operate in the very same way. They're not all in the same condition, but that's the science of humanity. And that's what you're going to bring forward in a time where people are going to be looking for this information. So as you reflect back on what we've all done together this year, we want to just say that one of the things that we're happy about is this connection, is the trust, is the support that is invaluable. And you all feel it. It's not like you're addicted as far as your life is going to end if you don't have interaction with each other. But there's a kind of a family that we're hoping will spread throughout your communities and throughout the world to world peace. That this peace that you bring within inside yourself and that you consciously choose to bring around yourself in your little world or your bigger world, it's everywhere. It's no matter where you go. It's not just, you don't just affect your parents or your sister or your people at work. Every single human you have interaction with, and just moving around in the atmosphere, radiating this energy that's coming from your source, that's pure compassion, that's changing the world as well. For the next few weeks, we really would suggest that take some time to sit with 2022, feel the things that you've let go of, see the things that you've gained, look at your growth. Take some time before the end of the year to pare down. Really purge. Think strategically about what do you want to leave behind in 2022. Just leave it behind. Give it a proper burial, a proper funeral, no matter what it is. If it's a horrible thing, you want to leave behind something from your past that took place, still give it a proper ritual where you can honor it and love it for all of the lessons that it helped you learn, or all of the resources it was at one time, whatever those things are. Then bury it. And if you want to do it a real ceremony before the end of the year, where you maybe write down things and go outside and dig a little hole or build a little fire, do some little ritual about what you're going to let go of and clear the way. And when we get into 2023, we'll do some forward-thinking visionary stuff. But right now, let's just stay with closing out the old. And you might feel that. There might be a sadness, there might be a melancholy, a kind of mourning. That's good. Mourn. Say goodbye. Feel the sadness. Honor, love, and cherish everything that those experiences brought you. Because 2023 is a 7-year. And it is going to be a wild ride. And we want you all to be as prepared as you can. We're so excited about your relationships, that you're not only dealing with each other, but you're also having better relationships with everybody all the way around. And when we say everybody, we mean everybody, not just your parents or your workmates, but the people in line at the supermarket. You're having better relationships. This is a direct reflection of the self-love that you have been showing yourself. And we're so pleased to be a support group for you to learn how to change your operating system. Not just a process that you go through, but actually changing the whole operating system. Now, you are going to hear more and more about, is a human life really a simulation? And this is an idea that isn't completely new, but it's starting to be very trendy now about, could this be a simulation? And are you just inside somebody's computer having this experience? What we want to say is that there's a lot of truth to this, but what they don't ever see is what is fueling the computer in the first place. And they have different cute ideas for what they call that. But no one nails it dead on to say compassion with the capital C, the fifth fundamental force of the universe. Some of the ideas behind being under living in a simulation are kind of dark and Orwellian. We want you to always hold the truth that you know that this operating system, this simulation of a life that you're living here in the lens, this is because you are tapped directly into God. You are, in fact, operating with that God energy and compassion as the creative force behind your entire universe. This is important. This is going to be something that comes up next year that you're going to have a jump on as people come into your lives who want more information. You're going to have it there for them. So this end of the year should be a time of deep satisfaction. That's what we want you to strive for in these next few weeks, is finding a way to find deep, deep satisfaction with your life. Everything in it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the high, the low, the in-between. Find a way to unify your relationship to everything to where you can be deeply satisfied with the life that you are living. And if you're not, then dig in and find out, what is it going to take? What will it take to give you the satisfaction of being you? Does it mean letting go of old past stories about who you think you are or aren't? Does it mean emptying out the basement of even more emotion? Take some time to do that. But as Debbie had said, the only conflict on the root level that ever exists is between the intuition and the intellect. And we can say that like it's just one sentence, but it's universes in there, in your head. Universes exist. So it's a very, very complicated place, which is why we keep encouraging you to always go back to the basic, simple, first one baby step. Always go back to the When you don't know where to go, take a breath. Just stop, take a breath, center yourself. And slowly but surely, these humans are pushing the envelope of evolution of human consciousness. And we have so much hope and joy because of this, because of our work together. There's no reason not to be. So once again, we say thank you. So any questions or conversation?
In which way will the next year be a bumpy ride? What do you mean by that? Is it emotionally? Is it politically? Is it personally? Or is it all together?
We actually said wild.
Okay, okay.
Yes, but you know, of course, that rides are always bumpy. Unless you're just at the kiddie park and going around without any latitude or longitude or altitude. But what we mean, though, is that as you've seen in these past few years, that the scales are falling from people's eyes. You've experienced it yourselves because you've worked so hard on being self-aware. It's not such a shock at this time, this kind of work. You've been doing this for decades. But those people who haven't, who are caught up in the voices of culture, this is just as hard as it was when you didn't want to look at yourself, too. And there's a lot of drama that you all kicked up back then when you didn't want to look at yourself. So the good news is you're past that. Not that you don't have to deal with your ego. Everybody does. But for the most part, you have a much bigger picture in your everyday life of reality than most of the average people in the world. So the scales that are going to continue to fall and the truth that's going to continue to come up, it'll be hard for some people, but it'll be a relief for other people. And we want to encourage you to accept that you do not fit into culture. You're never going to fit into culture. You'll have groups of human beings that you trust and relate to. There'll be cultures that you fit into, like the culture of this group, of the psychic sorority. But the rest of it, and somehow you have to make peace with that. You have to stop thinking or wanting or expecting that you're supposed to fit in and find a way to move through it while not really being of it, being in it with this whole different inner life, this whole solid I am that can't be changed by anything but you. Nothing externally can change that. And moving through that culture. That's the wildest challenge. And we think that it gets easier and easier for you to do that, to accept that you don't fit in, not wanting to fit in. But then when you quit trying to fit in where you don't fit in, or thinking that you should fit in where you don't fit in, you don't want to fit in, you go out to find other places that really do serve you, that nourish you and feed you and support you. And you find those people. And, you know, we've often encouraged people to go do things that they don't think they really want to do, just to go do something. Like if someone is stuck with their creativity, they don't know what they really want to do. Well, go try a bunch of different things. Go try painting, or go try skating, or go try any number of different things, or seek out any number of groups of people that are out there. And don't think that if it's not the thing that doesn't stick that you made a mistake or there's something wrong with you. No, you're out there living life. You're trying, you're looking. And because you have that attitude and now you're growing from having all these different experiences that you may or may not want to do again, but you're doing them, you cultivate an attraction of a deeper part of yourself that then can reveal itself. And if you keep doing that, then you come to a place where you like suddenly you discover that you're just crazy about French cooking. And you throw your creativity into that. Fulfill yourself. Explore, experiment. Love, taste, touch. Be there fully. It'll be a wild ride.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was refreshing in so many ways to hear all that you've just languaged into being for me. Thank you. And for myself personally, I'm currently working through some physical pain. I'm wondering, I believe that it's energy and blockages and other things passing through me. And it also was impacted by some choices I made recently and didn't take care of myself. I'm wondering what you can offer for my healing. I've been 4 days now doing everything I know how to do with a pulled muscle and going over and accepting and appreciating the time that it's given me to reflect and be calm. I am feeling that it's a process and looking for the fruits of the outcome of this. I appreciate whatever you can share on that. Thank you.
We would just say that this is a process of patience. There's really no way around that. It's a time issue. Well, of course, there's the feeling and the breathing, and there's the oftentimes in other conflicts that you have that aren't necessarily directly related to a pulled muscle, you find the answers. So feel called to exploring not just here's the muscle that is pulled, but what are the other conflicts in other areas of your life pointing you to? And also that it's a puzzle of your intuition is going to tell you the next most advantageous step. And are you going to take it? Because it's a patience process, slowing you down, it's an opportunity to pay attention on that deeper level of the difference between that intuitive impelling and that intellectual impelling and what that relationship is. How does your intellect speak to your intuition? Because sometimes your intuition will say rest, and your intellect will say quite angrily, I've been resting long enough, or some such thing. It's a common response. In those moments, there's a very deep part of self to be seen and to be readjusted. How do you deal with a child who is impatient? Because sometimes within you, you have that impatient child. And there are times where that child really does hurt. And there are times where that child just wants stuff to move along. So she's going to create some kind of scene somewhere, whether it's confined to your mind. So those are the kinds of things that you can while away your time with. And then as you are doing that, you're pushing towards your intuition, and intuition is going to guide you to those other things. that might be able to help with the actual physical muscle. Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, can you expand a little bit on the computer simulation idea? There was a movie about that one time. What's his name? Jim Carrey, Canadian actor, who was in a life and realized that it was all a simulation. Came to the end of it, came to the border, the boundary of this prefab life kind of. And it was fascinating. I was just reading about Elon Musk this morning in the newspaper, talking about smarter user interfaces that we should worry about. Just how pervasive, invasive, maybe even artificial intelligence is. And people don't even realize that we're interacting with it the way we are.
Well, yes, and that was the Truman Show.
Yes, thank you. Truman Show. True man.
It was a beginning articulation of the simulation. The interaction with artificial intelligence is, yes, far, far more interactive than people understand. The kinds of technologies that Elon Musk brings forth has such potential for incredible good and also incredible evil. And that is the ongoing conversation since atomic energy, since nuclear fusion. Is something so evil that you shouldn't create it? Our point today was that you have the whole picture, that they don't. They will create technology that will manipulate a body, that will create this artificial life form that looks very much like a human, but without emotion. It's just a facsimile of the greatest creation, which is the human. Your ability to know that you live in a simulation, but that you're in charge of the whole thing, to the degree that you're a part of the whole, the one that's pulling the strings of that little human being that's being the hologram, it's being projected into the lens, that's you. And so we work to give you the understanding of those controls, while Elon Musk might create something that will be injected into someone that might be manipulated to regrow limbs, to unparalyze someone, those kinds of things, stop Parkinson's. Those are wonderful things. We're trying to teach you that you can facilitate those from within, but we're at such an early level of that part of evolution. But it's nonetheless the direction that we go.
Yes. That all makes sense to me. And he's an interesting character, Elon Musk, eh? Very alien. And it's when you have a bigger picture, like you're giving us, like you're sharing with us all these years, you can start to just forget what everybody's saying about people, what judgments or what criticisms, and just observe, step back and see how things play out.
And if you can always be that person who embodies compassion, then that's the difference that you make, rather than judging something, clinging to a story, clinging to the idea that this is a bad thing, we have to destroy it, or whatever. As long as you're working for the good of the whole, starting with yourself, and you really are truly doing it for yourself, treating yourself with respect, being aware of yourself, letting yourself feel and breathe, training your intellect to calm down and do the bidding of the intuition, making intentional and conscientious choices for the good of the whole. That's all that you can do. And when you do that, that's when the miracles take place.
Yes, and it's a huge thing to understand that part, that aspect of feeling your emotions, breathing them through and so on. But so many people don't feel their emotion. They don't want to, they try not to, they suppress, they end up with different constellations so that they're emotionless. It's something that's, yeah, as I understand it, the whole point of being on Earth is it's the planet of, you know, the whole spectrum of emotion is to be able to access, feel, experience all of it. But the judgment that comes with, you know, expressing or even admitting that you feel certain things has been a real downer.
Well, and yet, if you think about the difference between the past 60, 70 years or the past 150 years, 60, 70 years ago, and maybe even not even that long, but women were put in mental hospitals because they had emotions. While it feels like it's not getting anywhere, even since we came through and started working in a group with Barbara, culture has moved so much farther. But yes, still very rudimental.
We're leading the charge. We're the wild women.
Yes.
I'd like to ask another question. I've heard more about Nassim Haramein's work in physics and the unified field, and he spent a year and a half bringing forth a paper that is, in simplistic terms, going to show that we're all connected, and in his way of thinking that it's going to benefit the world, not unlike realizing that the sun doesn't revolve around the earth and the earth is not flat. What can you offer us about the work that he's doing and where it falls into this technology arena that we might from the knowing and perhaps utilizing of the information and the things that come from it, and where we ought to be cautioned as to where that might be going?
Nisam has been working on all of these kinds of concepts on a mathematical trajectory. So he is still rudimental in his unified field. The dangers that lie ahead are not anything that we would warn anyone about when it comes to finding out the unified field, any different than anything else. This is not a inherently good or evil on his part. It's a picture, and our hope is that humanity is birthed so that evil doesn't have a chance to fester. That evil is not, there's nothing that's inherently evil except the decisions of humans to do for the good of the few at the expense of the many. And the only warning we can give you about that is not to be evil. That's the only thing you can possibly do. In the future, there may be challenges like you've been through where you have to stand up and say no against culture. And it takes courage. You've all been through that. Part of the purpose of that was to have you hold in your body that no, you're not going to partake in that way. You're not going to participate in what could be evil. And you're not going to allow yourself to be pushed off what your intuition and your compassion and your inner unification tells you is what's good in any given moment. Hopefully that can quell any concerns.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because he often mentions that he's finishing Einstein's work with the work that he's doing.
And yes, he is in the sense of mathematically, but he is yet to draw the human psychological association with what he's doing and the the control that consciousness has over itself.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're going to close the channel at this time by saying that as you go forward this week and towards the end of the year, really feel yourselves letting go intentionally, consciously, clearly of habits, stories, patterns, thoughts that do not serve you anymore. Prepare the way for 2023, the 7-year that's going to bring out all kinds of unexpected surprises, many different levels of conscientious change coming about. And there will be no shortage of you watching and being amazed. Namaste.